The one, the only, Bencio Land.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Ideally speaking, today we continue with this book, The 10 Dumb Mistakes That Really Smart Couples Make. We're beginning chapter 2. It's titled Love is the Glue. We talked about at the end of the last chapter how the first pillar of marriage is commitment. When you get married, you got to be committed to your spouse. What keeps the marriage going? That is love. Love, according to the author, basically means that you are committed enough to resolve your problems. He talks about over here, what is the leading cause of divorce today? The author writes, what is the leading cause of divorce today? If you ask your friends, parents, neighbors, or coworkers this question, I suspect you'll get a string of answers. Either problems with raising children, money problems, religion, in-laws. I don't think any of those are true. While all of these might be issues in a marriage, none of them are significant causes of divorce. There is only one major cause of divorce today: fighting. Now, you may say clearly a couple that gets divorced is going to be fighting, but isn't it the issues that cause the fights? This is the question I asked myself before I read this paragraph. It's the question of how we discipline the children, or how we spend our money, or how we deal with our parents that causes all the bickering. But that's not correct. It's not the issues that cause fights. It's how the couple deals with the issues that defines their relationship. It's not the children or the money or the religion or the in-laws that cause the trouble. It's how the couple negotiates their differences over these issues that determines the success or the failure of the marriage. He says there's a study that shows 70% of successful long-standing marriages have irreconcilable differences. If you ever wonder, when you get divorced, at least in America, you have to provide the court with the grounds for divorce. And almost all the time, you see this a lot with movie stars and people in entertainment getting divorced. What's their number one cause for grounds for divorce? Irreconcilable differences. What's irreconcilable differences mean? Their difference is that they can never figure out how to resolve. For example, he has an example. Someone has a thriving business in New York, and she has severe allergies and needs to live in San Diego. There's no middle ground. Chicago won't help either of them. If she wants to send the children to a Hasidic school and he wants them brought up Litvish, you can't compromise to have the kids running around with curly payas on one side. I think that's a kind of funny example. He's got the payas on one side. There's no way they'll satisfy both of them, and those issues never go away. So he says basically, there are certain things that seemingly you can't compromise on. It's either your parents' house for the Seder or mine. We can't paint that living room green or blue, but mixing the two isn't an option. Yet despite these differences, many couples are able to maintain a loving, happy relationship. Now, the examples he gives are not really, and that's the reason these couples often are able to fix their marriages, is that irreconcilable differences means that you can't compromise. It's impossible to compromise on it. Most of these issues, when you decide, okay, should we go to my parents for the Seder or your parents for the Seder, you can compromise. This year, my parents. Next year, to your parents. So there's ways of compromising. So in almost all situations, even the case where someone has a business in New York, a thriving business, and his wife needs better weather of San Diego, there's always a way to compromise. There's always a way to figure it out. I'm sure you could figure out how to, nowadays with technology, it's much, you could move your business somewhere, or she could spend some time in San Diego. You could visit her. If the marriage means something to you, you could work it out, especially if you've been married for a long time. And I 100% agree with the author that if you want to keep your marriage going, you have to be able to compromise and negotiate, and that's fundamental to dealing with differences in the marriage. But as the author goes on to explain, he says that the way that couples are able, the success rate of couples resolving their issues through compromises and negotiations depends on how much love there is in the marriage. And he brings some studies that couples with if you observe couples talking with each other and there's contempt, like rolling of the eyes, that's pretty much signifies that they're through with each other and they're not willing to negotiate or compromise. So I would say like this: the author is saying that love is the thing that I agree with him. You have to be able to negotiate and compromise, but I don't think that love has anything to do with this. As I mentioned in the last chapter, I believe that love really comes from people loving something about the other person. They love that they're similar to the other person. They have similar interests. They have similar goals. They have similar enjoyments and things that they enjoy in life, and they can spend time and enjoy those things together, and that brings love. I will add one thing. Um, there's two words, there's liking somebody and there's loving somebody, and usually friends don't love each other. They like each other. You can be friends with your wife because most of the time you don't share everything with the other person. Even if you have a man who's a friend of yours, you know you could like spending time with that person. Do you love that person? Probably not, because you don't share everything with that person. And even if you share almost everything with that person and you're similar in almost every way, you're not gonna love that person. I said last chapter, loving the person, but love is really actually something else. And he actually brings this up at the beginning of the chapter, where he starts off the chapter with saying a story from the Torah with Avram Avinu. Avram had the Malachim came to visit him, and he serves them an elaborate meal. And they ask him, "Ayi Sarah Ishtach, where's your wife?" And he says, "Ba'ol, she's in the Oel." So he asked the question. He says, "This is a pretty personal question. Where's your wife? Come on, the guy just gave you a nice meal. You're some strangers. They're even Arabs, and now you're asking where's his wife? Why are they asking that?" So I think Chazal say that the reason he asked that is because they wanted Avram to appreciate that Sarah was not someone going in the streets. She was not someone going in public. She was in the tent. She was keeping herself only for her husband. And then the Malachim tell Sarah that she's going to have a son. And she says, "How can it be that I'm going to have a son when my husband is so old, Avram is so old?" And Hashem, when he relates it to Avram, what Sarah said, Sarah said, "How are we going to have a child when I am so old?" Specifically, did not say her husband, because that would have insulted the husband and Abraham, that he was too old. So Hashem sort of lied, and you're allowed to lie. The Gemara derives from this for Shalom Bayis, for living together. So the reason he asked, this is Avram and Sarah, they were some of the biggest tzaddikim. Why did he have to emphasize that she was in the tent? And why did Hashem have to lie to Avram? Avram wouldn't crumble being insulted a little bit. Who cares? He was old. He was a rabbi. Rabbis like being old. Rabbis have more knowledge when they're old. So, at least that's what you'd be led to believe, that he's a rabbi. It doesn't say Rav Avram Avinu. So that's what you'd be led to believe. It's not so insulting. And why? He loved his wife Sarah very much. Who cares if they pointed out that she was in the tent? That was a little overstepping their boundaries to ask where his wife was. It's not appropriate, apparently. So what's going on over here? So he answers that this is to emphasize that love is so important in a marriage, that the Malachim did this in order. Here, Rav Hanach Liebowitz Zatzal, his Rebbe, explained that of course Avram wouldn't be broken by his words, but they might have made an ever so slight impression. They might have been felt by Avram, and on some level he might have been hurt. My wife thinks I'm too old to have a child, and while it certainly wouldn't have led to anger or harsh words, it might have cooled on even the smallest level the powerful love that Avram felt for his wife. Even the slightest degree of hurt and pain between spouses is good enough for Hashem to change Sarah's words to lie. And also, that is why they said that she's in the tent, so that it increased the love. So he says that would enforce, in a sense, the angels were repaying Avram for his kindness. They asked the question, where is Sarah? That Avram would answer, she's in the tent. That would reinforce them how modest she was, which would make her more beloved in his eyes. They were giving him the gift of increased love in the marriage. And because there's increased love, they're able to work out all their problems about money, and about raising the children, and about the in-laws, and religion. They are able to work out all those problems because they have love. So, as I mentioned, negotiation, compromise is essential to marriage, to keep a marriage going. And you need people to be committed to the marriage in order to do that. But to me, what's going to be able to give that couple the ability to compromise and negotiate, before that, you need unbelievable and complete communication. Because a lot of times when you fight, you leave out points. You don't talk about everything that's really bothering you. And if there's no open, complete communication between the couple, so they're gonna leave out the main point and tell you a small point because they're too embarrassed to talk about what really bothers them. And you'll never reach a compromise when people are not telling you what really bothers them. You can't compromise on something that you don't know about. That's the biggest problem. The reason couples are unable to compromise and negotiate is because there's no communication. And communication derives, as I said many times, from a healthy relationship in the bedroom, comfortable relationship, an unawkward relationship in the bedroom. So really the source of all marriages going bad, or at least 98%, I believe, is awkwardness in the bedroom. Either it needs not be taken care of in the bedroom, or because they're awkward, so you're not going to be able to communicate even outside the bedroom, and therefore it'll preclude any attempt to negotiate or compromise. You're right, you get into fights, you have to negotiate. The problem is the compromise. Love has nothing to do with this. And love, right, is not going to help you compromise when you're not communicating well. But he's bringing up the topic of love, and I did mention that love, I don't believe many couples are married to their zivug. I don't believe anyone's married to their zivug. So, and you're probably married to the person, the worst that you can take, that you can still remain married to. Hashem wants you able to get through this world. So Hashem gives you the worst possible person that at least you could, like Murphy's Law, that you could at least go on with. What people do, if it would be a perfect marriage, you would share common interests. You would both be extroverted, you both be introverted. Right? Usually you have one spouse who's extrovert and one who's introverted. So, and even if they're really both introverted, one is more fun to be around, one is very quiet and boring. So, usually don't have people that share similarities. But sharing similarities is liking. And I want to get to this example of Sarah, because the Gemara Megillah says that Sarah was the most beautiful woman in the world. Perhaps. Maybe. I mean, she's listed. There's 4 extremely beautiful women who ever created. Sarah is listed number 1 on the list. She's number 1. She was the most beautiful woman in the world ever created. So there is one thing that creates love, and it's different for a man and for a woman. A man will love a woman who is extremely beautiful. A woman is extremely beautiful physically. Her face, her body is extremely beautiful. He will love that woman. Any man will love a woman like that. That's just the nature of men. They will love that woman, even if she's very quiet and she has other problems. She's annoying. She spends too much money. It doesn't make a difference. There is one thing that will take away the love of the man. If she's a woman who does not respect her husband, meaning most women don't respect their husband, but if the man starts to feel that the woman has a step up on him because she's beautiful, and he's basically a slave to her because he wants to keep the marriage. He'll keep the marriage going at any cost because he has a beautiful wife. So the man's not going to love his wife anymore. And that's essentially what happened. And Hashem told Abraham that Sarah didn't have complaints against him, against his manlyhood. She was concerned about her age, not his age. That would have ruined the love. That's true, right? He loved her because she was the most beautiful woman in the world. And a woman, if you want to know what type of woman, what man a woman was going to love, a woman will love an alpha male. Males that are alpha males, women will love a man who's a strong person, not just physically strong, but mentally strong and confident and cool. If you have that, somehow have that combination of completely confident and completely cool, meaning completely strong. That's what confidence is, really the measurement of what's strong. Obviously, if you add cool to the mix, it's gonna also help you. So any woman will be attracted to a man who's an alpha male, who's completely confident and also cool. So that's just the way it is. So a woman will love a man like that, just like a man will love a woman who's physically beautiful. A woman will love a man that's an alpha male, just the way it is. So those are the 2 types of people that you will love. You will love those people. There's only love between women and men. There's no love between man and man or woman and woman. So in terms of love, now this has nothing to do with negotiating your problems and compromising your problems. That has something to do with something else. Like I said, the ability to communicate. That's the ability to communicate. But if you're looking for love or liking someone, which probably you don't have in your marriage, but technically, theoretically, what love and liking someone really is. Love is when you have the woman's beautiful or the man is an alpha male. And liking is when you have similar interests, but don't worry, you're not married to someone who you like or love either. So the only hope you have is to perfect the bedroom and have perfect communication. And then when you can perfect the communication and you can honestly say to each other what bothers you, then you're able to negotiate. Obviously, if you say all the things that bother you, and you're stubborn people, you don't negotiate well. That's not going to help you. But in order to be able to, most people who are committed to a marriage are willing to negotiate. It just has to be, everything has to be clear and on the table, and then you can negotiate properly. That's what I have to say. We'll do part 2 of chapter 2 coming up next week. See you then.